It's only 4 words. This one's for John.
This one's for Pat.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of NFL with Kyle. And today, it's all about the tight ends. We're going to be talking about which tight ends were voted by, I had it in the title, executives, scouts, and coaches. But I could only have 100 characters in my title, so I had to take out scouts. But yes, scouts also were part of the voters. And they're going to rank their top 10, and I'm going to go through it and say, hey, I either agree or I don't agree, but we're at least going to get a look at probably we could all agree, the best tight ends in the game. Okay, there's a lot of new tight ends that are up and coming, guys like Sam Laporta, who I think could even take the role as the production-wise the best tight end in the league in 2024. And you might be thinking, if you didn't watch football last year, who's Sam Laporta? Well, Sam Laporta was drafted by the Detroit Lions last year, and he just emerged onto the scene, which does happen every single year, not necessarily at the tight end position, but I mean, all over the football field. Puka Nacua had a breakout season. And we're also going to look at which tight ends are going to break out in 2025. And these are going to be players that aren't going to make this top 10 list. So we're going to roll right into that, which I think will be a great transition. And then we're going to look at Jerry Rice, a confrontation that he had at the golf course with Jason Kelsey, all that tonight. So let's dive right in. And with 2024 training camp on the horizon, it is time again for the league's true insiders to make their voices heard. ESPN surveyed league executives, coaches, and scouts to help us rank the top 10 players at 11 different positions, from quarterback to cornerback and all the positions in between. This is the 5th edition of these rankings, and as usual, several players have moved up or fallen off last year's list altogether. A reminder of the ranking process, okay? This is for all of you that may not be familiar with it. Voters give us their best 10 players at a position. Then we compile the results and rank candidates based on number of top 10 votes, composite, average, and dozens of interviews with research and film study help from ESPN NFL analyst Matt Bolin. In total, nearly 80 voters submitted a ballot on at least one position, and in many cases, all positions. Additional voting and follow-up calls with those surveyed help us break any ties, okay? So there will be no ties. So this is how they do it, okay? Then it would be no different if we had 100 people that watch this channel, and we asked everybody that watches this channel to give us their top 10 favorite podcasts. And then at the end, we look at all the data and we say, hey, who got the most number 1 votes? Who got the most number 2 votes? So this is what we're going to be doing at the tight end position. Last year's tight end group is compelling, or this year's tight end group is compelling because it has the classic heavyweight fight of Travis Kelce and George Kittle, along with the undercard of rookies versus the field. And not only rookies, but rookies that we're expecting to break out. Probably guys like Kyle Pitts, now playing with Kirk Cousins. I expect him to break out. We've been hearing all offseason that Brock Bowers is the greatest tight end prospect in the history of the NFL. And like he said, Travis Kelce and George Kittle are the old reliable tight ends that are probably going to go 1 and 2. This year's rank up, and also I can't just brush past Sam Laporta. Sam Laporta, in my opinion, should be no lower than 3. This year's ranking had a shakeup at the top. Interesting. Darren Waller, who ranked I can't even say it. Darren Waller ranked 5th in last year's edition. He announced his retirement in June. And another 2023 top 5 tight end dropped in the ranking, but that didn't water down an already stout field led by the guy on the Chiefs. So I don't know how Darren Waller made it to top 5. Like, I understand when he's healthy, his athletic abilities are second to none, but that became a big when. And Darren Waller was not a top 5 tight end, not in the preseason, not during the season, not the year before. I mean, that is just mind-blowing that he was ranked that high. But regardless, we also have to give a shout-out to Iowa for developing tight ends. They are a tight end machine. 3 former Hawkeyes ranked in the top 5 this year, which is first for any college program in the 5-year history of this exercise taking place. So let's look at some of the game's top tight ends ranked by executives. And as I go through this, I'd encourage you guys to be active in the comments and let me know if you agree, if you disagree. But number 1 is not going to be one that I expect any of us to disagree on. It's Travis Kelce from the Kansas City Chiefs. And Taylor Swift, she liked the post that, suggested this when this got released today. And the world freaked out. Oh my God, Taylor Swift likes something that has to do with her boyfriend. Okay. Travis Kelce is the highest ranking tight end this year, last year, the year before that, the year before that, in the year before that. Okay. I don't know if they had him. This is my first time looking at ESPN on this little exercise that we're doing here. I didn't follow it the last 6 years that they've been doing it, or 5 years that they've been doing it. But I would probably guarantee you that he's been number 1 most years. And it actually says that his lowest ranking ever during this exercise is 5th. Okay. He is 34 years old. Last year, he was ranked 1st. Okay. So Kelce is back-to-back tight end king right now, narrowly outdistancing Kittle with a flurry of late first-place votes. Way to ruin number 2. His ability to separate on the field and in voting draws questions at age 34. He missed out on an all-pro first or second team and 1,000-yard season for the first time since 2015. And it does bring up a very valid question about Travis Kelce, in which I will ask you. If Kansas City would have gone into the playoffs, right, they had a very, very up and down season, meltdowns on the field, Kadarius Toney lining up offsides. They could not win. The offense was stagnant. The defense carried them to a Super Bowl. But I want to say this. If they would have gone into the playoffs and lost to the Dolphins week 1, or I'm sorry, not week 1, the first playoff game of the year, would Travis Kelce be ranked at number 1? Okay. Now, if they would have lost that game, I would say that 49ers would have won the Super Bowl. If the 49ers would have won the Super Bowl, would Kittle have been ranked at number 1 and not Travis Kelce? Because like it said, all right, he didn't have a 1,000-yard season last year. He didn't have an all-pro first or second team year. He had 10.6 yards per catch. That marked a career low for him. So Travis Kelce, in my opinion, is the greatest tight end of all time, probably, but not last year. And he's 34 years old. So him being number 1 in the list definitely feels like he's riding the momentum of a Super Bowl champion type season with the Kansas City Chiefs. I feel like that, if anything, is the reason that he's still at number 1. I mean, yes, he's still a matchup problem in the passing game. He still has a tremendous rapport with Patrick Mahomes. And I got to say, like, I would probably have him at number 1 too. But all I'm saying is that had Kansas City not won the Super Bowl last year, I think this might be a different tight end here at number 1. But that's a theoretical situation that didn't happen. The Chiefs did win the Super Bowl. And because of that, I mean, especially when you consider that the Chiefs passing game entirely depends on Travis Kelce, especially a struggling passing offense last season, they really were able, defenses were really able to lock in on Kelce and, in the coverage and just game plan against him. Now, he's the focal point of Kansas City's offense, and you can put more resources towards stopping him when Kansas City doesn't have anything else going on offensively. Doesn't necessarily mean that Travis Kelce isn't as good as he was. It just means that the Kansas City Chiefs offense isn't as good as they've been. So I don't necessarily have a problem with Travis Kelce coming in here at number 1 because of his ridiculous career that he's had so far. It feels like it would almost be disrespectful to drop him. But I also think that there is a slight argument to be made that Travis Kelce, because what are we doing here? We're not ranking last year's best tight ends. We're ranking the 2024 best tight ends. I think you could have a real case for Sam Laporta here at number 1. And I'm not kidding. And you guys can, attack me and throw tomatoes at me, but I think Sam Laporta is the new thing that is, I guarantee you at the end of the year. Let me just pull up a comparison of stats really quick between them last year. So we're gonna pull up Sam Laporta's stats, and we're gonna pull up Travis Kelce stats, and we're gonna look side by side. All right. So I got Sam Laporta's pulled up, and now I have Travis Kelce's pulled up. Last year, Travis Kelce had 93 receptions for 984 yards. Last year, okay, look at that. I stand corrected. So last year, Sam Laporta had 86 receptions for 889 yards, averaging 10.3 yards per reception. Okay, Travis Kelce averaged 10.6, 984 yards instead of 889 yards. So less than 100 yards difference between them. Travis Kelce averages 0.3 more yards. So this is neck and neck. But here's the kicker. This is why Sam Laporta is number 1, in my opinion, this year. He was a rookie last year. Travis Kelce is in his prime. He's being voted number 1, and we're doing a side-by-side comparison of a rookie. I mean, when you look at his years before, though, he had 1,300 yards, 1,100 yards, 1,400 yards, 1,200, 1,300, 1,000, 1,100. I mean, he's been the definition of consistency. It's okay to say Sam Laporta and predict him to have a better year than Kelce, but it's not okay to put him at number 1 when Travis Kelce's been the definition of consistency, and he has put together a remarkable career. And it's not going to be easy for somebody like Sam Laporta to have a good rookie season and just jump him. But next year, don't be surprised if Sam Laporta finds himself higher than Travis Kelce on the 2025 list. And Bill said, I love my tight end players. And Bill said, of all time, over Gronk. Yes. Yeah, over Gronk. Laporta is legit. And I understand Gronk's number 2, in my opinion. But Travis Kelce hasn't had the same injury concerns, right? Gronkowski was, I'll say it like this. Gronkowski's the best tight end of all time when he was on the field. But Travis Kelce is just the best tight end of all time. No parentheses, no asterisk, no but. Like I said, the numbers that he's pulled up, and let me just show you one last thing to support this. I remember seeing this during the playoffs. Most receiving postseason touchdowns. All right. Most career playoff receiving touchdowns. So Jerry Rice is number 1 all time, right? 22 receiving touchdowns. Number 2 is Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce is only 4 touchdowns away from having the most receiving postseason touchdowns. And Jerry Rice is a wide receiver. Now, whatever. I mean, tight ends get targeted a lot in the red zone. But still, Travis Kelce as a tight end being on that list is pretty remarkable. But if you look at number 3, you got Rob Gronkowski with 15. But Travis Kelce has already passed Gronkowski in a lot of stats. I don't know if you measure stats the way, measure success by stats. I mean, Travis Kelce also has 203 postseason targets. Gronkowski only has 160. Gronkowski has 98 postseason receptions. Travis Kelce has 165. But here's the kicker. They've both played 22 games. So it's not like Travis Kelce has more targets because he's played more postseason games, or more receptions because he's played more, postseason. They've played the exact same amount of games. So this is the closest we'll ever get to comparing Gronkowski and Travis Kelce side by side. Because unless you expect the Chiefs to miss the playoffs for the rest of his career, Travis Kelce eventually is going to have more postseason games, and that's going to lead to people saying, yeah, but Travis Kelce played more games. Today, we can say that's not true. Today, we can say that Travis Kelce and Rob Gronkowski have both played exactly 22 postseason games, and the stats, they're not particularly close. And I didn't even do receiving yards. Travis Kelce is on the brink of breaking 2,000 receiving yards. Gronkowski has 1,389. So, well, no, I'm not attacking you. I guess I just got passionate about it. But yeah, Travis Kelce is the GOAT at the tight end position. And there's a lot of guys too that you just wonder if they would have played in today's league with the pass happy offense, what they would have looked like. What would have guys like, I'm blanking on his name right now. Jeremy Shockley for one. Who's the other guy that I'm blanking on? Holy crap. I can't believe I'm blanking on his name. It's like that brain aneurysm where it just disappears. Anyway, it'll come to me when I let this go. But there's a lot of really great tight ends historically that you wonder, what would they have looked like in today's offense? And, we can always wonder, but we'll never know. Okay, so the number 2 tight end, I already spoiled it. I didn't mean to, but it was George Kittle. George Kittle, his highest ranking on this list was number 1. And just like Travis Kelce, he has never had a lower ranking than 5. He's only 30 years old, so he is 4 years younger than Travis Kelce. And for some reason, it does seem like they're closer in age than they really are. But George Kittle has almost half a decade less playing time than him. Last year, he ranked at number 2. This year, he ranks at number 2. So no difference for Kelce or George Kittle. The one thing I'll say about George Kittle, and one of the things you could say if you wanted to push back against me calling Travis Kelce the greatest of all time, you could very well do that in saying that George Kittle is a more well-rounded tight end. And that is what he has been known for. And when you see George Kittle on the field, you see, you could be playing a team that has a dominant edge rusher, and you see George Kittle come off the ball and chip that edge rusher just enough to give the quarterback a little bit of time to throw George Kittle the ball, and then his run after the catch is also good. George Kittle is definitely a more well-rounded tight end than Travis Kelce. They specialize in different things, and I will say George Kittle doesn't, in my opinion, he doesn't specialize in anything. He's what a tight end is. He's just really good at everything. Travis Kelce is definitely more of a receiving tight end. George Kittle, there's nothing that he can do. And also, something that I think makes a player great, aside from the stats, is their ability to not be a distraction, to make the team better. And remember, when Brock Purdy was down 17 points, I believe, to the Detroit Lions, George Kittle went over there and he said, it's going to be crazy when this game's over and we say they had us in the first half. He's trying to laugh with Brock Purdy, and Brock Purdy doesn't smirk or anything, and you can see the fear in his face. And George Kittle's like, hey, man, you are our leader. You're our leader, all right? We need you. And that was the moment where something switched in Brock Purdy. So George Kittle is the captain. He's a leader. He is everything that you could ask for out of a tight end. He's what you dream of when you draft a tight end. When he's healthy, he's incredibly hard to bring down. He has 15.7 yards per catch. That leads all tight ends. No one else surpassed 13 yards per catch. So that just shows you the difference between him and the guy in second when it comes to yards per catch. And his 7.4 yards after catch was tied for first at the position too. There's just nothing that he can't do. 7 years in the NFL, Kittle is still considered the game's premier blocking tight end. And deep in breaking routes, delays, boots, and keepers, he's a problem with the ball in his hands. He's more explosive than Kelsey at this point, and being able to stay a little bit healthier this year helped him a lot. So George Kittle, he led all tight ends with 1,020 receiving yards in 2023. And like I said, there is a case to be made for George Kittle to be at the number one position. But this is oh wait, man, words are just not coming to me today. Not relative. What do you call something that it's in the eyes of the beholder? You and I can have a different opinion. It's not black and white. Whatever that word is, throw it in the comments for me. Bill said Kittle doesn't chip, he pancakes defenders. Very true. Very true. And number 3 on our list is somebody that I'm going to have my first disagreement with. It's Mark Andrews. And I like Mark Andrews, but I personally, I would have him at number 3, maybe even higher. So Mark Andrews comes in at 3 this year. Last year, he was at number 3 as well. Mark Andrews actually has been ranked high as number 2, and his lowest ranking is 6. But he's 28 years old, so he is younger than Kelsey and Kittle. And Andrews went back and forth with Sam Laporta for the 3rd spot before overtaking him in the voting process. So it looks like it could have been Sam Laporta, but when they counted all the votes, Mark Andrews had more votes for 3rd. A mid-November ankle injury spoiled another stellar season. Andrews was pacing for 925 yards and 10 touchdowns. He's still a monster target in the middle of the field, huge catch radius, a mismatch or a matchup issue for any safeties, and he's a bruiser after the catch. He's considered to be more rigid than Kelsey, but he's used similar as a number 1 receiver / tight end. While receivers have come and gone in Baltimore's offense, which before last year was known for the running game, Andrews has produced like a high-end pass catcher throughout. He's helped that passing game stay afloat for a long time. And Mark Andrews, of course, he's one of the game's best tight ends. Personally, I have a disagreement with 3, but I feel pretty good knowing that there's a lot of other people that feel the same I do about Sam Laporta. Okay. Now, this is weird, okay, because Sam Laporta comes in at number 4. Relative. Thank you. It's all relative. Thank you. So Sam Laporta comes in at number 4, and it says that his highest ranking was 3. His lowest ranking was 7, which is interesting, right? Because that means last year as a rookie, Sam Laporta was ranked 7. 7. I didn't realize that the hype was that high on Sam Laporta. He cracked the top 10 as a rookie before he even took a snap for the Lions. I find that fascinating. The Lions have spent 3 first-round picks on the tight end position since 2009. Okay? Eric Ebron, Brandon Pettigrew, and TJ Hawkinson. But it's a second-round pick who's poised to become the franchise best selection of the position group. Laporta exploded onto the scene with 86 catches, the most ever for a rookie tight end, ever, for 889 yards and double-digit touchdowns. He's effing awesome, veteran NFL scout, NFC scout said. Everything looks very easy and natural to him, and that is very true. When you watch Sam Laporta play, he does not look like a rookie. He looks like somebody that is a veteran that's been playing in the league. Everything he does looks easy. He makes contested catches. He's just so reliable. So reliable. I had him on my fantasy team last year, and I can tell you every single week I knew that I didn't have to worry about the tight end position. He plays the game the right way, snap in and snap out, strong for his size, and very instinctive. The 10 touchdowns led all tight ends last year. He dropped 6 passes, but one league executive said he has good hands, and that won't be a problem long term. And I look, he dropped 6 passes. That when you're targeted as much as him, I'm not worried about that, not one bit. And it's funny because last year the Detroit Lions, when they drafted Sam Laporta to fill a role, and that role was a role that was filled by TJ Hawkinson. And the Lions had this thing where they were getting rid of their running backs, and then they were getting younger. They were getting rid of their tight ends, and they were getting younger. When it was time to pay TJ Hawkinson, the Lions said, no, we're good. And they drafted Sam Laporta. So I'm interested to see how this pans out long term. Is Sam Laporta eventually going to get paid, or are they going to do to TJ Hawkinson like they did Sam Laporta, especially after the amount of money they gave Goff and the amount of talent that's on that team? I would imagine at some point, Aiden Hutchinson, these guys, you're not going to be able to keep this team together. The Lions are in a Super Bowl window right now because the talent that's on this team, they can't keep long term. And Sam Laporta is just not somebody you want to part ways with like they had to the guy that comes in at number 5, TJ Hawkinson. His highest ranking is number 4. The lowest ranking, he was out of the top 10. Last year, he ranked at number 6, so he is one spot higher than he was last year. And Bill said relative comparison is a comparison between the degree of 2 objects from Google. Thank you, Bill. Bill has always been my Jamie. Now, Hawkinson makes his top 5 debut despite a severe injury. And look, Hawkinson has definitely been somebody that has been very consistent since he's come into the league. The Vikings could sit Hawkinson for the early part of the season due to his recovery from a torn ACL and MCL that he suffered on a big hit week 16. It's very unfortunate when you have a season-ending injury at the back end of your season. Really, really tough. Hawkinson has posted career highs on catches and yards before the injury. So Hawkinson was really on pace for his best season ever, which explains why he was only one spot lower than his highest ranking ever. His zone instincts are elite. The ability to manipulate areas and get friendly to the QB. Then he moved up a spot despite his injury. The fact that he moved up a spot despite his injury is a testament to his work. His ability to win on choice routes in level 2 and create leverage versus linebackers and defensive backs. He can play with power versus smaller guys and with more finesse versus bigger guys. He can play across the formation, and you'll have to respect him as an all-around tight end because he can and will block. And here we go again, another well-rounded tight end that doesn't have any weaknesses. TJ Hawkinson, I got no problem with him being here in the top 5. And I'm excited for 6 through 10. And just before I get into it, I'll tell you why I'm excited for it is because there's really not much to disagree about with 1 through 5. But once we get to 6 through 10, it gets interesting because there are a couple tight ends that I'm expecting to break out and have very big years, potentially their best year yet. And that is what I am projecting for the guy at number 6. And his highest ranking ever was at 3, and his lowest was at 10. Last year's ranking, he was an honorable mention. He actually wasn't ranked last year. And it's David Njoku. David Njoku. Okay, David Njoku had a monster season last year. And it seemed like he finally figured it out, at least to me, last year. And he didn't even have his quarterback last year. After years of playing in the background, Njoku finally broke the 100-target threshold in his 7th NFL season and validated that volume share with 882 yards and 6 touchdowns, despite playing with 4 different quarterbacks. His enormous potential was finally realized. He ranked first among tight ends in yards after first contact and yards after the catch, tied with Kittle. It's probably taken him a while to get down the nuances of the game, but his size and athleticism has always been a problem for defenses. He's not polished, a little inconsistent when it comes to feel for the game, but he has gotten better, and there's a lot to work with still. And I can't agree with that anymore. There are times where you're watching Njoku, and it just feels like he has these kind of it's the inconsistencies, right? He has games where he breaks out and he shows you why he could be a top 3 tight end in the league. And then he has games where you're like, where's Njoku? Why isn't he playing a bigger role in the game? Okay. But last year, the Browns, I think, got Njoku on the right path. Okay. You can tell that he's still learning, and he's not that old. He's 28 years old. TJ Hawkinson's 26. And Mark Andrews is 28. So it does feel like he's a little old to still be figuring it out. But I think his potential, the enormous potential, almost makes you a little more patient with Njoku. His biggest issue last year is that he had 9 drops, which led all tight ends. And like I said, those are those moments where you're like, I thought we were past this. And then all of a sudden he has a game where there's some drops and he just doesn't ball out. But when he's having a game, when he's in the zone and he's not dropping balls, Njoku is a lot of the times the best weapon on the field for the Browns when he's in that space, that mentality when he's hot. So Njoku found success with Joe Flacco late in the year, which voters believe isn't indicative of long-term success. This is an interesting conversation to have here. And me and Rick were just talking about it. It almost seemed like at times the Browns offense was operating more efficiently when Joe Flacco came into the offense and Deshaun Watson left. The question is, will Njoku be able to find that same success with Deshaun Watson? I think so. I really do, especially Deshaun Watson. He was on the sideline. He was in the booth. He was watching all those games. And I think he was thinking, man, this guy is really good. I got to make sure that me and him have a good rapport next year. Njoku's biggest 3 receiving games of the year came over a 4-game stretch with Flacco as his starter. Think about that. His biggest 3 receiving games of the year came over the 4-game stretch that Flacco started. It remains to be seen whether Njoku can repeat the performance with Deshaun Watson back. And I just got to believe that he'll find a way, right? He has to. He showed too much in that 4-game stretch for them to just go back to the way things were before. Okay. Coming in at number 7. And this is one that's interesting to figure out, because there was definitely the moments where this was a no-brainer, and then you had his years where you kind of gave up on him, and it's Dallas Goedert. His production dipped last year, averaging 10 yards per catch on 59 receptions compared to an average of 13.8 the previous 2 years. But to his credit, the Eagles' offense fully collapsed in the second half of the season. But expect Goedert, who's still in his prime, he's 29 years old, to embrace new coordinator Kellen Moore's offense. Production aside, Goedert gets it done in various ways. He's one of the few that can block at a high level and still receive. A high-ranking NFL official said that. He's a lot like George Kittle in that way. Goedert can make things happen with the ball in his hands. His average of 5.4 yards after the catch per reception ranked 4th among the tight end group. Philadelphia relies heavily on Goedert for run-pass option screens and underneath plays. He has seam stretching abilities, but the presence of wide receiver A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith could continue to surpass his bottom line. Yeah, Goddard, he when he's hot, man, he's one of the best in the league. But last year, it doesn't take long for you to kind of forget about a person, and Goddard's really got to bounce back. There was another tight end that this reminds me of, and it was also somebody that played on the Eagles. It was a big reason that the Eagles won their Super Bowl in Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz, after that season, was like, this guy is maybe the second, third best tight end in the NFL. And then it was just a few years later that he was sent to Arizona, and he was looking for a home, and he couldn't find one. And then Arizona picks him up. And then all of a sudden he has a decent year with Arizona. And we're like, yeah, Zach Ertz is still, can he still play? It's just, it happens so fast sometimes. And right now it does feel like we're at a fork in the road with Dallas Goedert. And it's like, all right, his production dipped, but he can't have his production dip again. The reason, he's 29 years old. So if your production is going on 2 years in a row, you're going on a downhill, and then you turn 30, the Eagles probably are going to move, off of him. And then all of a sudden he could get sent to somewhere that's not favorable. And then all of a sudden he's gone. And it's like, what happened to that guy? Right. But if he can get back to where he was in Kellen Moore's offense, then I think you're going to get a Dallas Goedert that could be top 5, in my opinion. We've got a really young guy coming in here at number 8. And the only guy younger on this list was Sam Laporta. And at number 8, we have Dalton Kincaid. Dalton Kincaid. His highest ranking was 2. Highest ranking, 2. How is he ranked second if George Kittle was ranked second last year and he was a rookie last year? Not sure I understand this quite. Highest ranking was 2. Last year's ranking not applicable. But last year Dalton Kincaid was drafted. Does that make any sense? Goddard is good, and I don't like it. And Bill is a Giants fan, so that makes sense. But look, I don't understand this. This is either I'm either in the Matrix right now, or there's a major typo going on a couple of these teams. Kincaid drew comparisons to Travis Kelce when he came out of Utah in 2023. So they understand that he was a rookie last year. So even more confusing. With his smooth route running, Buffalo wouldn't mind Josh Allen and Kincaid stealing some of the Mahomes-Kelce magic as a potent quarterback tight end duo. He's supernatural as a mover, super instinctive, great hands, a high-ranking NFL personnel man said. Not sure he's explosive after the catch as some of the others. Along with his 73 receptions and 673 yards as a rookie, Kincaid ranked atop this group in average yards from the nearest defender at pass arrival when targeted. While he doesn't possess high-end speed, Kincaid's 4.7 second 40-yard dash time was adequate for his position, and multiple evaluators believe that he plays faster than that. And that's true. There's 40-yard dash speed and there's game speed. And sometimes they just are totally different. Once you put the pads on, we call that game speed. I can say I watched a lot of football last year, and I saw Kincaid play. I never once felt while watching him that he's slow. So take that 4.7 yard, 40-yard dash with a grain of sand. All right. I knew this guy was going to crack the top 10, and I'm glad he did. Bill said, I low-key wanted Kincaid on my team. 6'4", 240 pounds. I mean, damn. Yeah, that guy's a beast. That guy is an absolute beast. And we talked about this guy yesterday. Number 9 is Evan Ingram from the Jacksonville Jaguars. Many evaluators who kept voting for Ingram when he struggled in New York can reveal now that Ingram has been highly productive in Jacksonville. He led his position with 143 targets and 114 receptions, were 19 more than any other tight end last year, and an insane amount of production out of him. Jacksonville asked Ingram to carry the offense at times with 558 routes run, by far the most for a tight end. He's a matchup problem. You can't put a linebacker on him. You put him on shallow crossers and get the ball out quickly in space on screens, and he can do damage. And that was a lot of what we saw from Ingram last year. And I got to say, if I had to tell you who Ingram reminds me of, it's Darren Waller. Darren Waller, in my opinion, and Evan Ingram have a very similar style of play where a lot of mismatches, crazy athletic, get him the ball in his hands quick, and let him be dangerous running after the catch. Ingram's 8 drops were the second most for tight ends, but on 8 tight window throws, he caught 5 of them per Next Gen Stats. That's 62.5 success rate, and it topped the group. So, yeah, those drops, you almost wish those drops happened on the 8 tight window throws because then you have an excuse for him. But also, when you have 143 targets, which led all tight ends, there's going to be a couple of drops in there. He's got to clean that up, but definitely had the kind of year last year where you would put him in the top 10. His highest ranking ever was 5th on this list, and last year he ranked 8th. And at number 10, a guy that got paid. The guy that got paid this year. And Bill said, I'm very happy for Evan. It just didn't work out for us. He's better off in Jacksonville. If he's happy, I'm happy. That's nice. That is a real fan right there. I feel the same way when we lose players. Sometimes. I don't know if I want Jerry Jeudy to ball out with the Browns. It would kind of be salt in the wound a little bit. But Jerry Jeudy never really talked bad about the Broncos. So I don't know. It's tough. I go back and forth. There's like the angel on one shoulder and the little devil on the other shoulder. The angel's like, I'd be happy for him. The devil's like, traitor. But of course, it wasn't his fault. I would just be mad if we spent a top, 12th pick in the draft on Jerry Jeudy in the first round, and the Browns get to be the one that get the production. I'm a little salty about that, probably. So coming in at number 10, rounding out the top 10, is a guy that got paid this offseason because his rookie quarterback needed him. It was Dalton Schultz from the Houston Texans. In a battle of Texas, Schultz edged his replacement in Dallas, Jake Ferguson, and many others for a spot in the top 10. Schultz is a former Cowboy franchise player who turned a modest one-year deal with the Texans into a $36 million extension. And you might be thinking that Dalton Schultz is a little bit older than he is, because when you make a name for yourself in one city and then you get a one-year contract somewhere else and then you sign another big contract, no, he's only 28 years old. His style of play isn't flashy, but voters who value consistency, they value him greatly. He's committed 2 drops on 88 targets, one of the top clips among tight ends. He's one of 5 tight ends to rank in the top 8 at the position in catches, yards, and touchdowns since 2020. Kelsey, Andrews, Kittle, and Hockenson are the others. That is pretty good company, if I do say so myself. He's just an all-around good player. He's consistent, blocks, can make contested receptions, and he affects winning. So Dalton Schultz rounds out Jake Ferguson, who Jake Ferguson replaced Dalton Schultz with the Cowboys. And the Cowboys have had good tight ends for quite a while. I mean, you had Jason Witten, and then Dalton Schultz, and now Jake Ferguson. And there are some honorable mentions here, and Jake Ferguson does. He is the first honorable mention, so we're still going in order. Jake Ferguson broke out in year 2 with 761 yards, including 425 after the catch, which actually ranked top 5 for tight ends. He has some swag to him. He seems to have chemistry with Dak Prescott. And there's a couple on here that I'm not so sure about. All right. We are officially in our honorable mentions right now. So let me know if you agree with some of these or not. Number 2 on the honorable mentions, Trey McBride. And McBride, you might have first seen him and got to know him during Hard Knocks. McBride had 1 drop on 108 targets, which is really impressive for a guy that's in his second year. His 81 catches, 42 went for a first down. That was 5th among tight ends. We were really high on him coming up. He does a lot of things really well. Run after the catch, good in the red zone. He has higher upside than many of the guys ahead of him. He's more of a pass game tight end, but a competitive blocker. In like when we talk about the Cardinals, when I said who is an underrated or a surprise team potentially, I had the Cardinals on that list, and I had the Titans on that list. Trey McBride going into year 3, he could take another big, massive step. Kyler Murray could get back to playing really good, especially now that you've added the Marvin Harrison Jr. into the lineup and a really good running back in Trey Benson. They're starting to put together a good amount of talent spread across this offense, and Trey McBride is going to benefit from it. The next honorable mention is Pat Freiermuth with the Steelers. I can agree with this one. Freiermuth, his proverbial 3rd season jumps into the elite. Last year, he was supposed to jump into the elite, but it was sabotaged by a hamstring injury and poor quarterback play. He had 32 catches for 308 yards and 2 touchdowns in 12 games. He's the guy who should be up there. He's really skilled and savvy, knows how to get open, just doesn't have the production. And also, the Steelers in general didn't have the production. It's not just Freiermuth. It was their entire offense. It was Najee Harris. It was their receivers. It was Deontay Johnson. So now that you bring in Russell Wilson, who is, pretty, a tight end guy. He likes his tight ends. So expect Freiermuth to have a better season, and still he's one of the top tight ends in the league. He's just outside the top 10, but I got no problem with him being the 3rd tight end on the honorable mentions. Rick's going to love this one, Cole Kmet. And I wouldn't have the guy underneath him ahead of him, but we'll do Cole Kmet first. He made a serious push for the top 10 with 73 catches, 719 yards, and 6 touchdowns, despite quarterback uncertainty in Chicago. Very underrated, an NFL personnel evaluator said. We just don't know a lot about him because of Chicago's passing game, but he's solid all around. And yeah, I mean, we can talk to Rick about it on Monday, but he loves Cole Kmet, and he is a serious weapon in an offense that has DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, Keenan Allen, Cole Kmet. There's a lot of targets and a lot of star talent on this team right now. And then another team with a ton of star talent, and this year, Brock Bowers was the best tight end prospect in the history of the NFL. Well, 2 years ago, this guy was the greatest tight end prospect ever. Kyle Pitts out of Florida. And Pitts is the last one on this list. Pitts' production has fallen off with a combined 81 catches for 1,000 yards since 2022. Couple that with the 6 career touchdowns, and Pitts hasn't validated his billing as a number 4 overall pick in 2021. Oh, that was actually 3 years ago. Wow. Despite a 1,000-yard rookie season. Coming out, this guy's a monster in the passing game. First year, oh my God, he's still a problem. But that knee injury he had, it just doesn't look right. People talk about how they use him, but it doesn't look like he's the same guy. I haven't really noticed, honestly. I just thought that Atlanta hasn't had consistency. Arthur Smith's style of offense, a lot of running, not very tight end friendly as far as the passing game. It's, Arthur Smith's no Andy Reid. And honestly, you look at the top two people on this list. You got Andy Reid, number 1, Kyle Shanahan, number 2, Harbaugh, number 3, Ben Johnson calling the plays. He calls the plays, not Dan Campbell. Number 5, you got what's his name? I'm blanking on his name right now, the head coach for the Vikings, but he's also an offensive guy, somebody that I normally know his name immediately. But then you get down here and you just wonder. We always talk about how you need a little bit of luck in the NFL to work. And part of that luck is where you're drafted, the type of scheme that you're drafted to, the type of players that are on that team, and the type of coach that's coaching. And I just wonder if Kyle Pitts would have been drafted to a different team, if he would have had more success. And I also wonder if Kirk Cousins is going to get more out of Kyle Pitts than we've seen since he was drafted. Also, some players that received receiving votes was Noah Fant from Seattle. He is just way too one-dimensional to make this list. Doesn't know how to run block to save his life. Luke Musgrave, Green Bay Packers. Dawson Knox, Buffalo Bills. Tyler Higbee with the Rams. And Hunter Henry with the New England Patriots. Kevin O'Connell, thank you. Bill said, is Pitt overrated? I've heard that more than once. What's your take? It's hard to say. It's hard to say because I think why he was let's say, why was he rated so high to begin with? It's because his insane athleticism. His combine stuff, he was just one of those guys that you were like, if this guy gets drafted to the right place, he could be a Hall of Fame tight end. That was his ceiling, was maybe even the best tight end ever. That's how people felt about him. So look, at this point, it seems like he was overrated because we just haven't seen that type of production. But I'm going to double down on why this is so hard for me to say, and it's because of the offense. Arthur Smith's offense, the quarterbacks that they've gone with, they just have not. Desmond Ridder, Marcus Mariota, they haven't necessarily given Kyle Pitts a real quarterback. Now, this is his year because now you're bringing in Kirk Cousins. So after this year, I will confidently say he was overrated. He was, I wouldn't say he's a bust because he has had the production. It's just not worth getting drafted number 4 overall. We normally don't see tight ends go that high. Even Brock Bowers, who is considered a better tight end prospect, was drafted with the Raiders at, I think, 12. So a lot of being drafted at 4 has to do with the type of draft that Atlanta found themselves in. Kyle Pitts probably would have been drafted at 12 had he been in the 2024 class, but talent is different every single year. So, but still, if you're going to be a tight end that's drafted in just outside the top 10, the idea is that you're going to make a huge, huge impact. Now, you got guys like Sam Laporta drafted in the 2nd round last year that already seem to be better than Kyle Pitts. But Ben Johnson is an amazing play caller. So it's really tough. It's tough to say right now. It really sucks. Some of these players, man, they get drafted and they just don't go to the right place. But I'm a firm believer too that if you're really that good, you're going to find a way. Like Terry McLaurin didn't have great quarterbacks. He found a way. There's plenty of players that have been consistent no matter who the quarterback is. But it's tough. It's really tough to say. And yeah, that was Kevin O'Connell. I clicked that already, but Kevin O'Connell, he's still a respected play caller in the NFL. So Jalen Brunson, by the way, accepts $156 million deal, $113 million less than 25 deal. I know that's basketball, but all right. So just to go through it really fast. Number 1 was Travis Kelce. Number 2 was George Kittle. Number 3 was Mark Andrews. Number 4 was Sam Laporta. Hawkinson, 5. Njoku, 6. Dallas Goedert, 7. Dalton Kincaid, 8. Evan Ingram, 9. And Dalton Schultz, 10. Okay. And then the honorable mentions, Jake Ferguson, Trey McBride, Pat Freiermuth, Cole Kmet, and Kyle Pitts. Those are your top 10. And then the guys that received votes, but not enough to be an honorable mention, Noah Fant, Luke Musgrave, Dawson Knox, Tyler Higbee, Hunter Henry. All great tight ends. All great tight ends. So now we're going to roll, staying with the tight ends. I don't want to lose you guys. Staying in the spirit of tight end, we are going to talk about breakout candidates at tight end for 2024. Bill said, can you imagine taking $113 million pay cut? No, I can't even imagine $113 million, period. I didn't realize how simple of a person I was, but really, when I do the math about how much money I need to be comfortable, even with the economy and inflation, my amount of money to be comfortable is about $70,000 a year. Like that's, yeah, it's always nice to have more because you can buy nicer things, but like honestly, I'm a pretty simple person. I'm not all. So when I think about people that make hundreds of millions of dollars, I'm like, I don't think that that kind of money would change me because I don't know what I would buy with it. You know, I don't know. I remember I did the math. I was like, I think $100 a day, if I could make like $100 every single day. Somebody handed me $100 bill every single day. And I did the math and I was like, how much money is that? And I'll do it again really quick. So 365 days a year, including leap year, times 100. Wait, no, that's not it. No, $200 a day. $200 a day times 365. Yeah, $73,000. That's my number, right? Because in my head I was like, well, then if I save that $200 for 5 days, now I have $1,000. But it's crazy because I'm pretty much close to that, right now, and it still feels like maybe $200 a day is not enough. I forgot about bills. I meant to say with all of my bills and expenses all paid for, $200 extra a day. That's what I mean to say. Okay, so now the moment we've all been waiting for. We are going to be looking at fantasy football breakout candidates for tight end in 2024. Okay, each season, players take their game to a new level. Sam Laporta did it last year, and they significantly improve their production along the way. Bill said, funny side note, my buddy used to work for Sage accounting software, and the Cowboys ran it. They had to patch the software to add an extra digit to the check software. Wow, holy crap. That's crazy. That was, I don't know if I told you, speaking of the Cowboys, when I was at the Wounded Warrior, the Warrior games in San Diego, the hotel that we stayed at when we did our training, because I think I did swimming, wheelchair basketball, what else did I do? Rowing. And then I do swimming, rowing, wheelchair basketball. I think those are the 3. I thought I did one more. But we trained at the hotel that the Cowboys do their off-season program at in California, which was pretty cool because Aikman was cut a check so big the software couldn't handle it. Holy crap. That's crazy. How big was that check? Oh, I get it. Oh my God. That's like the gas stations when they built the gas stations and they weren't prepared for gas to ever go to double digits. This happened in Seattle and probably in California, but gas was getting so high, but it couldn't go to $10 a gallon because they didn't have another digit. So they needed to come in, install an extra digit because they just weren't planning on that ever happening. And then it happened. It's kind of similar to that. So the tight end position can often be frustrating, especially for fantasy football purposes, because when you're playing fantasy football, you have a group of tight ends like the guys that you just saw here. But once they're gone, it gets really dry out there. Like if you don't have a Travis Kelce, a George Kittle, you get desperate. You get desperate. So that's the reason that it can be frustrating for fantasy football, but patience and knowing what to look for can go a long way in finding the next great asset when you're building your roster. So if you play fantasy football, pay close attention here. A few qualifiers before diving into this year's candidates. A significant jump in overall fantasy finish and or fantasy points per game is expected, not just an incremental improvement. So this list is not just people that we think are going to be a little bit better. We're talking about a significant jump in fantasy. We're also looking for around 150 PPR fantasy points. That's 9.5 fantasy points per game. No rookies. Let's make things more challenging than that. A list of rookies that will make a fantasy impact in year one can be found here, which is a list, and I'll just give you those names really quick. Okay. I'm not going to go through that right now because it's not just tight ends. Okay. So here we go. Here are 10 examples of players over the past 5 years who fit the above criteria before delivering their breakout season. People that they got right: Trey McBride, Jake Ferguson, Jawan Johnson, Dawson Knox, Robert Tonyan, Logan Thomas, TJ Hawkinson, Darren Waller, Mark Andrews, and Hayden Hurst. All right. Let's take Darren Waller, for example. Pre-breakout year fantasy points, 15.6. Darren Waller only had 15.6 fantasy points. Pre-breakout year. Breakout year, he had 223. He went from 15 fantasy points in 2018 to 223. Yeah, we're talking about a significant jump. Dawson Knox went from 70 to 162. Trey McBride went from 61 to 169. Jake Ferguson went from 48 to 164. So it's important to note that many of the breakout tight ends come out of nowhere when compared to their previous season's fantasy production. So for fantasy managers who believe in the opportunity in 2024, don't be afraid to take a shot at the position because they're unproven. So they're just reminding you, like, look, it's not going to feel good. You're not going to get the warm and fuzzy. You are taking a chance. It's going to be a name that you're like, what? Who's that? That's your guy, okay? The only tight end to crack even 50 targets prior to the breakout season was TJ Hawkinson. So out of all of these players, TJ Hawkinson was the only guy pre-breakout year to have 50 targets. He had 56. For breakout tight ends that aren't able to deliver at least 600 receiving yards, then they need to score at least in the range of 7 touchdowns to have a significant breakout, because the touchdowns were 6 fantasy points. And Bill said Waller's out. He retired. Yeah. This was Darren Waller's breakout year was in 2019. So these are just players that in the past broke out. So PFF wrote this article. They do this every year where they predict a tight end that is going to break out the next year. So we're just looking at some of the examples that have happened in the past. No worries. The only tight end, let me update this this title really quick so the people joining us can see what we're talking about here. Here we go. Okay. So here we go. Number 1. This is interesting because I would say that this guy broke out last year. Dalton Kincaid. Okay. 2023, he had 136 fantasy points. 2023, he had 9.1 per game, 90 targets, and 673 receiving yards. The expectation for Kincaid's breakout is significantly higher than any other tight end. His 90 targets were the most of any of the previous examples. Like we just said, the most ever was 50. Since 2006, only 4 rookie tight ends have exceeded 80 targets in a season. 2 of them were last year with Kincaid and Sam Laporta. The other 2 were Evan Ingram and Kyle Pitts. And Kyle Pitts was in 2021. Evan Ingram was in 2017. Kyle Pitts had that his rookie year. Both Ingram and Laporta's target pace the following year dipped, but that came with the addition of high-end wide receivers that weren't on the offense the year prior. With a healthy Odell Beckham for Ingram in 2018 and Drake London being drafted for Pitts in 2022, Kincaid's the opposite of that. He loses a high-end wide receiver in Diggs, and he also lost Gabe Davis. But Stephon Diggs commanded 159 targets in 2023. Kincaid already delivered in a big way as a rookie, and now we're betting on the significant improvement breakout that's represented in his current tight end number 4 ADP. Doing so would allow for more than 9.1 PPR points per game from last season, put him firmly on the map as a weekly top 5 fantasy tight end. I agree with this, man. This is good information right here, right? This whole thing, I mean, he is the whole offense, right? You also got Dawson Knox, but Kincaid is going to play a monster role for Buffalo this year. I mean, you had 2 tight ends on that previous list we just did for Buffalo, and that's why they got rid of some of those receivers that they got rid of. But Kincaid's going to be the guy. Outside of delivering a significant amount of touchdowns for which he'll have competition in those high-scoring areas of the field between Josh Allen and Dawson Knox, Kincaid should aim to become the Bills' top target earner to greatly exceed his already strong production as a rookie. With Diggs gone and no true alpha wide receiver brought to replace him, there are a lot of targets and production up for grabs in this Josh Allen offense. Kincaid makes the most sense as the next man up, with Keon Coleman having long-term potential, but he doesn't project to hit the ground running in year 1. And Khalil Shakir, a potential wide receiver breakout, also has his share of competition among similar options at the position. Kincaid has the talent to be the top receiver on this team, and while his 19.6 target rate as a rookie ranked outside the top 10 qualifying tight ends last year, it also means that there's still some unlocked potential for a high-end tight end prospect, which leads us to the next point. Showcasing his first-round talent. Kincaid's 90 targets were still impressive considering he shared time with fellow tight end Dawson Knox. He had Diggs on the roster, but as impressive as those targets were, there are potentially even more in store. His yards per route run, 1.46, ranked tied for just 14th, while his receiving grade tied for 18th. Diving into Kincaid's college profile, there's certainly more potential with his game, hence why he was a first-round pick in the first place. His 93 yards per career receiving grade ranked among the 95th percentile of prospects since 2018. Did you guys know how good he was last year? He had a 93.0 career receiving grade, which ranked among the 95th percentile of prospects since 2018. And his 2.32 career yards per route was among the 90th percentile. The average receiving grade for first-round tight ends, minimum of 100 snaps since 2006, is 66. That's the average receiving grade, 66. While the average yards per route is 1.45. Both numbers that Kincaid exceeded as a rookie. There's an expected jump in year 2, whereas those averages rise to a 71.2 receiving grade and a 1.52 yards per route run. Numbers that Kincaid has the potential to outperform again for his breakout season. Love this. I love this information. I agree with all of this wholeheartedly. If you are drafting next year, let them go get Travis Kelce. Let them get George Kittle. You don't have to draft him in the first round. Let Dalton Kincaid fall to you in the third round, and you will be happy that you didn't reach in the first or second round. Next up, and remember, these are significant upgrades from last year. Luke Musgrave, the Green Bay Packers. In 2023, he had 73 fantasy points. Expected to have a lot more. Musgrave was in and out of the lineup as a rookie due to injuries, but when he was on the field, he was able to showcase the fantasy potential that we'll be looking to come to fruition in 2024. Through the first 11 weeks of the season, Musgrave was the Packers' clear top tight end to the point where Tucker Kraft, his closest competition this year, never cracked 20 routes run in a single week while Musgrave was in the lineup. Musgrave earned 44 targets during those first 11 weeks of the season, which was the third most on the team. After he returned from injury in Week 18, he was eased back into action, running just 6 total routes and still earning a target. In the 2 playoff games for the Packers, Musgrave was still being eased into a larger workload, but in those 2 games, despite running a total of just 21 routes, he still managed 7 targets, 6 catches, 66 yards, and a touchdown for a 91.9 receiving grade, highlighting just how effective he can be when utilized in this offense. And he's going to retake the clear tight end role back from Tucker Kraft. That's what Luke Musgrave is going to do this year. Remember, Kraft tore his pectoral muscle this offseason, which required surgery, so he currently has no timetable to return. In the meantime, Musgrave is able to redevelop his rapport with Jordan Love and work as the clear top tight end in the Packers offense. I think the Packers in general are going to have a really big season next year offensively. It just seems like whatever happened late last season with Jordan Love, the page is turned. And the Green Bay Packers are going to be really good. Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, Datavion Wicks, even Romeo Doubs. There's a lot of players on this team. This is the youngest team in the NFL. And I expect a lot of players to break out, but maybe nobody more than Luke Musgrave. And Bill agrees. He says second year version of Jordan Love, Musgrave could be a thing. Yeah. One of Musgrave's calling cards coming out of Oregon State was his ability to act as a downfield threat, leading his rookie class in average depth per target with 12.8 yards. Over his final 2 college seasons, this translated to some of his usage and effectiveness in Green Bay as a rookie, earning a 15.6 deep target rate, which was the second among 17 qualifying rookie tight ends since 2020. He came down with 100% of catchable passes thrown 20 plus yards downfield and delivered 126 receiving yards on such throws, the third most among the same qualifying rookie tight ends. Musgrave's unique ability as a downfield tight end threat is just one of the ways he can separate himself as a non-replaceable piece of the Packers offense. So that's kind of that's what he does. I mean, every tight end has their calling card. Luke Musgrave's calling card is his ability to act as a downfield threat, and the numbers back it up. So next year, if you don't have any of these top tight ends available and Luke Musgrave's on the board, snag him. Here's a tight end on the list that I don't have too much familiarity with. And this is the first time that this has happened so far in this whole entire night. Jelani Woods. And this is why I love this exercise, because so far, like Dalton Kincaid, I love it, but it's not super bold, right? Like Kincaid's going to be drafted really high, probably no lower than the 5th round. Now we're getting to the guys where if you accidentally missed the tight end wave and you need a guy, chances are that the people you're drafting with don't know who Jelani Woods is, because I watch a lot of football and I'm not quite sure that I had Jelani Woods on my radar. I'm lying. I did not have Jelani Woods on my radar. And here's part of the reason. Jelani Woods missed the entire 2023 season due to hamstring injury that kept him from getting back in the lineup after a relatively strong rookie year in 2022. Woods led the Colts tight end room that year in receiving yards, 312, receiving grade, 68, and he even led the entire team in yards per route run. The elite athlete out of Virginia showcased a lot of potential as a rookie, and being back fully healthy in 2024, he has the opportunity to bring a whole new dynamic that was missing from the Colts offense last season. After highlighting several tight ends who seemingly came out of nowhere in fantasy production before delivering their breakout seasons earlier, Woods is a personal favorite to be this year's version of that breakout tight end. He wasn't a full-time player when we saw him last, delivering just 5 PPR points per game. PPR stands for points per reception. So he only had 5 points per game and 74 total fantasy points in his breakout year. But he has significant upside to bet on for that to greatly increase this year. Okay, he's going to become the clear tight end 1 in Indianapolis. Woods' encouraging rookie season in 22 came with sharing time with tight end Kalen Granson, who's still on the team. Granson led Indianapolis' tight end in routes run in 22 and 23, though he did it without really providing Woods' encouraging potential. Granson has managed just 62.1 career receiving grade and just 1.26 yards per route run, both lower than Woods' lone rookie year. Doing so on 615 routes run, nearly tripled the opportunity that Woods has had. It seemed like outside of having Anthony Richardson for an entire season, that the one part of Indianapolis' offense that was sorely lacking in 2023 was having a dynamic tight end who could stretch the field and dominate in the red zone, which is exactly what Woods should bring. Indianapolis deployed its tight ends almost by committee in 2023 because of the lack of a top option, giving Woods an opportunity to prove he is unique amongst that group. His 10.7 yards average depth of target was top 5 mark since 2018 for rookie tight ends. At 6'7", with the best relative athletic score for a tight end ever, a 10.0, ever. What? He has the best relative athletic score ever for a tight end. I am mind blown to hear that. Jalen Woods, height. So the most you can score, the athletic testing is on a scale from 0 to 10, okay? So his height, he got a 9.8 out of 10 for his height. His weight is a 6.4. His bench, he had 24 reps. That's an 8.8. His vertical is a 9.5. He had a 37.5-inch vertical. His broad jump is a 9.8. His 40-yard dash, 9.3. He ran a 4.6. He had a 2.6 20-yard split, a 1.5 10-yard split. His shuttle was 4.3, which isn't crazy good, but still good. But his 3-cone was 6.95. So, in his arm length is also really high. He had 34.5 inch arm length, and his hand side's 9.5. So his relative athletic score is a 10.0, which is the highest ever. So there's that upside that we were talking about. There's the upside that is going to get him to be that tight end 1 spot. He is the missing piece that can take Shane Steichen's offense to another level in 2024. He's going to become a go-to option in the red zone. His massive frame provides him a significant advantage over most coverage defenders and can pay dividends in those areas on the field like the red zone and end zone. The 2022 Colts were clearly aware of this potential as well, targeting Woods on 19.4% of his routes in the red zone, which was the second highest on the team, just behind Michael Pittman. Michael Pittman was targeted in the red zone 20%. He's 19.4. Over the past 2 seasons for the Colts, that 19.4 target rate in the red zone is the best mark for their tight ends, as is Woods' 70.7 receiving grade, 0.94 yards per route run, and 9.6% first down touchdown rate in that area of the field. Accomplishing this rookie provides more encouragement that another year of growth will make him an even more dangerous weapon in those high-value scoring areas on the field, giving him a big leg up in his fantasy potential as well. I love this one because it's one thing to give us names like Luke Musgrave and Dalton Kincaid, but these are still people that you know are going to get drafted. This is somebody that you can keep in your back pocket. Don't tell anybody about it. I really hope that Rick doesn't watch this episode because Rick is in my fantasy league, and this is somebody that I would like to draft. Even if I've already drafted a Dalton Kincaid or a George Kittle, I would still like to have somebody like this for insurance on my bench. And in case I miss the bus on Travis Kelce, George Kittle, somebody that I can at least have hope in that he can be my starting tight end. So Jelani Woods for the Colts. Bill, can you remember this guy's name for me, just in case one day I'm doing this and I go, what was that guy's name that I wasn't going to forget? I need your help, Bill. It's Jelani Woods. Jelani Woods. He's going to be somebody that I definitely draft this year because, like, I'm being honest. Like, I didn't know this, but the data that they have, his athleticism, the fact that Anthony Richardson's coming back, I believe in Shane as a head coach. Like, this is exactly why I love PFF, is because they give you the kind of information that you just don't know, and they put it out on paper, and it just makes entirely too much sense. It's almost like, how did I not know this? But now I do. So those are the potential breakout tight ends this year: Dalton Kincaid, Luke Musgrave, and Jelani Woods. Yes, Bill, I was hoping that I would have one of mine or your tight ends in this list. Your Theo Johnson, I was hoping would make the list, but they said that they're not doing rookies. But for fantasy football purposes, they do have a list of rookies that they are expecting to have a huge fantasy impact in their first year. And Caleb Williams is first on the list. Jaden Daniels is 2. I like Jaden Daniels. Marvin Harrison Jr. also. Malik Neighbors. Look at that, Bill. Malik Neighbors. Oh, thank you, Bill. Malik Neighbors is on the list. The quarterback situation and the overall offense in New York are concerns for fantasy managers who spend up to roster Neighbors in 2024, but the lack of target competition on the Giants gives him an island unto his own to see a ton of volume as a rookie. Much like Marvin Harrison, Neighbors earned a high-end targets per route run figure, 0.26, and has all the potential and talent to make the most of his year one situation with the Giants. Neighbors' best recent comparison in his rookie year should be 2022 Garrett Wilson, who had a good enough season to win Offensive Rookie of the Year with a combination of Joe Flacco, Mike White, and Zach Wilson as his starting quarterbacks. Wilson compares very similar to Neighbors coming out of college in efficiency metrics. They were both top 10 picks in their respective drafts and have lackluster target competition to contend with as rookies on offenses with question marks at quarterback. Very good comparison right here. Wilson's ceiling was capped quite a bit in his low-scoring offense, finishing with just 5 top 12 finishes, but volume still allowed for overall production as he finished as the PPR wide receiver 21 that season. There's also an argument to be made that Malik Neighbors' fantasy managers should even be more optimistic about him compared to Wilson's rookie year based on the situation, better college numbers, and slightly better quarterback situation, assuming that Daniel Jones is back healthy. And Bill says Belly would do better if, 1, his eye wasn't gouged out his rookie year. I didn't know that. That's gnarly. And 2, he isn't tasked with only blocking to make up for a subpar Evan Neal at right tackle. I got to see that video. That sounds gnarly. I didn't know his eye got gouged out. So here is the metric that we're using to compare Malik Neighbors to Garrett Wilson heading into the rookie years. Okay. So Garrett Wilson had an 89.1 NCAA receiving grade. Malik Neighbors has a 91.2 receiving grade. Higher. Garrett Wilson had a 2.73 NCAA YPRR. Malik Neighbors has a 2.83 YPRR. I don't know what YPRR is. Just being honest. Garrett Wilson was drafted 10th overall. Malik Neighbors 6th overall. Higher. Team passing grade from previous season. Garrett Wilson 56.2, that was 30th. Malik Neighbors, 65.7, 20th. Better. Team wide receiver / tight end to earn 80 targets in previous season. No. So both teams that Garrett Wilson and Malik Neighbors were drafted to did not have a wide receiver or tight end to get 80 targets in a season, just meaning that there's going to be a ton of volume for both of them. Rookie season yardage total, Garrett Wilson had 1,103 yards. Malik Neighbors, we don't know. Rookie season fantasy finish, Garrett Wilson finished as the 21st best wide receiver fantasy-wise. Malik Neighbors is also an unknown at this point. But, I mean, it is a little bit difficult to, if you're drafting, I mean, I like Malik Neighbors, I do. But if you're drafting him to be your wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2, it does scare you. But look, if he's really that good, they're going to find a way to get him the ball. And if Daniel Jones is back healthy, he's going to be looking for Malik Neighbors often because that is going to be his guy. That is going to save his career. Now think about this. If Malik Neighbors has the kind of season that Garrett Wilson had, let's just say that he has over 1,000 yards receiving, maybe that would be the kind of season where that would put the Giants back in the playoffs. And also, before you go back in the playoffs, what the hell are you talking about? Playoffs? Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game. Before you do that, the Giants were in the playoffs 2 years ago, right? They missed the playoffs last year, but the year before that, they went to the playoffs. They won a playoff game. Daniel Jones got a big contract. If Malik Neighbors has a good year and Daniel Jones stays healthy, the Giants could be back in the playoffs. And if they do go to the playoffs, you're not getting rid of Daniel Jones. That's just not how the NFL works. If your quarterback takes his team to the playoffs and wins the game, they're not moving off of him. So in a way, Daniel Jones is really relying on Malik Neighbors to salvage his career. And I would imagine that connection, I don't know if it's going to be great, but I expect the volume to be there for sure. And Bill said DJ only played 6 games last year. Too many injuries. Exactly. DJ so far is looking okay in movement. I hope Neighbors works out. And I'm wondering, what he looks like in camp. Have you heard anything about the insiders from the Giants people at camp and anything like that? Because I'm just curious. And we're going to go over 3 rookie wide receivers to close, to put a bow on this whole thing. And we already did Malik Neighbors, and this one's gonna kill me to do. Oh man, I do. I don't know if I'm worthy of this. Xavier Worthy, Kansas City Chiefs. Oh, okay. Daniel Jones, he's put on at least 10 pounds of muscle, and he's moving very well. All right. Danny Dimes, man. He's coming back. This is his year. Xavier Worthy for the Kansas City Chiefs. Okay, Kansas City Chiefs wanted him. They called Buffalo. They moved up in the draft, and they got him. Why Buffalo didn't draft Xavier Worthy? My guess is that they were high on Keon Coleman, and they just wanted to get extra capital because they were going to draft Keon Coleman anyway. So there may not have been a better fit for Worthy in this draft because he lands with Kansas City. He gets a quarterback in an offense that is going to be efficient, a quarterback that is going to make him better. He ran a 4.21 40-yard dash at the combine. His speed is no secret at this point. He's broke the record. I was there when it happened. I keep saying that because it's cool to be witnessing history like that. He's the exact kind of weapon that can thrive in this Chiefs offense by either getting open underneath and taking off with the ball in his hands and providing Mahomes a much-needed, consistent deep target, something that he hasn't really had since Tyreek Hill left. Kansas City's passing offense resulted in the highest percentage of passing yards coming after the catch in 2023. So that's interesting. The highest percentage of passing yards coming after the catch, which means that Kansas City, a lot of their passing yards came from yak yards after the catch. It wasn't necessarily that they were throwing the ball deep. It was that the receivers were just getting yards after the catch. I don't know another way to say it, but hopefully you understand what I'm saying. The average depth of target was shallow, meaning that Kansas City needed somebody that could stretch the field. They needed a true deep ball threat on the field, and that's what they drafted Xavier Worthy to come in and do. Kansas City's passing offense resulted in the highest percentage of passing yards coming after the catch, which was even more than the previous year when they finished with the 3rd highest mark in that regard. Worthy is among the best in this year's rookie class with the ball in his hands, averaging 7.3 yards after the catch per reception. Oh, so the author of this is actually going a different way. He's just saying, no, I'm not saying that he's going to be a really good deep threat. I'm saying that the Kansas City Chiefs are really good with the ball in their hands. And this receiver averages 7.3 yards after the catch per reception. So he's just saying that's what the Chiefs have been doing well, and that's what Xavier Worthy does well. He's in the 80th percentile mark among prospects since 2019. Worthy has plenty of experience on deep targets, seeing 94 throws of 20-plus yards downfield during his college career, though he wasn't necessarily getting the most accurate throws. As Texas ranked 118th out of 133 FBS teams in adjusted completion percentage on such throws since 2021 during his time with the team, Worthy came down with 77.4 of his catchable deep targets, which isn't an amazing number by any means, but it's a lot better than his overall completion rate on 20-plus targets, which was 25.5%, which was the third worst mark in FBS over the past 3 seasons among qualifying wide receivers. Over the past 2 years, Mahomes ranks just 17th among qualified quarterbacks in adjusted completion rate on 20-plus yard throws. So the hope is that adding a speedster like Worthy will allow both players to flourish in that regard and act as a bonus to what he'll be able to provide underneath and after the catch. Worthy could be even more crucial to the Chiefs' offense this year, as Rashee Rice is expected to serve a significant suspension to start the season. And he's expected to be the number 1 guy, like right away. And that's kind of the theme. These rookie wide receivers that are expected to have big fantasy years, they are expected to take on that role. And they're expected to do it from day one. And our next guy and the guy after that, both are no exception to this rule. Wide receiver Ladd McConkey from the Los Angeles Chargers. Fantasy managers were clamoring for the Chargers to get one of the top 3 wide receivers in this year's draft. But alas, the team opted to address the offensive line. And they did. And they drafted Joe Alt. Hold on one second. Oh, sorry. I gotta send this text really quick. So anyway, Ladd McConkey is going to be involved early and often in his NFL career, and he's likely going to be Herbert's most reliable target on a weekly basis, thanks to his ability to get open and be productive with the ball in his hands. His primary role is going to be in the slot, and it should create confidence for fantasy managers, as he's already proven to have an excellent feel for zone coverage and be productive. And the one thing I'll say is he's not going to be that big, deep threat. He is going to be a slot receiver, and slot receivers, they're very important. But Ladd McConkey strikes me as a wide receiver 2. He doesn't necessarily strike me as a wide receiver 1. And I'm not sure if you're going to get the kind of production that you want. But what makes you feel confident is that Justin Herbert is such a great quarterback, and he'll have 5,000 passing yards. But can he do it without his receivers, right? Harbaugh comes in, his receivers go out. Ladd McConkey is going to fill that role, but to what extent? I'm not sure if he's going to get you the kind of numbers that you want out of a wide receiver 1 or a wide receiver 2, but I think maybe you could flex him. He could be a solid flex player. Okay. He's Javon Baker and Malik Neighbors were the other 2. Javon Baker ended up getting drafted by the Patriots. I feel very similar about Javon Baker. It's like I really like Javon Baker, but for the type of role that he's going to be playing, he's somebody I would want on my team. But do I want him on my fantasy team? Probably not. But anytime Justin Herbert is your quarterback, Ladd McConkey having wide receiver 1 numbers is well within the realm of possibilities. I just don't know if I personally would take that jump. And then Keon Coleman from Buffalo. And of course, Keon Coleman is going to make this list for the simple reason Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis are gone. And now the depth chart consists of guys like Curtis Samuel, Khalil Shakur, Chase Claypool. These are guys that are pretty good, but they're also not Stephon Diggs. They're not Gabe Davis. So they draft Keon Coleman, and there's big shoes to fill here. The Bills spending early draft capital on a wide receiver felt inevitable. I think we all knew that they were going to do it. The fantasy managers should have likely felt excited about whoever the team brought in, and Coleman now gets to be that guy for the time being. I have some concerns about Coleman's long-term sustainability in the NFL considering his college profile, which was relatively unproductive. He managed just 1.87 yards per route run in his career, and he never surpassed 800 receiving yards in a season. The plus side of this is that he's still young, not even 21 years old, as of being drafted by the Bills. And the lack of target competition in year one should allow him to be productive by default. Also, keep in mind, Dalton Kincaid, we already talked about him, but a lot of production is going to be going to the tight ends as well. One of the concerns with Coleman coming out of college is that he hasn't given any indication that he's a high-end separator, which would help him earn more targets on his own. For his career, his open target rate on throws 10-plus yards downfield is 21%. It's the worst among the FBS wide receivers in this year's draft class, period. On the plus side, though, Josh Allen has a 10.5 big-time throw rate on tight window throws. That's the second best over the past 2 seasons, and he isn't afraid to try and fit the ball into receivers without separation, which will ideally maintain a strong target rate for Coleman as a rookie until he continues to develop into a more polished wide receiver. Very similar to how I feel about Ladd McConkey, I feel about Keon Coleman. I understand that they're going into situations where the volume is going to be there because of the lack of weapons on the team. But the reason that I'm not really willing to just jump on board is because unlike the other guy that we talked about, Malik Neighbors, who the volume is going to be there because of the lack of options, Malik Neighbors has that elite talent. He has the elite upside. Ladd McConkey and Keon Coleman, I don't know if they have that same type of upside that Marvin Harrison Jr., Rome Odunze, and Malik Neighbors have. So I like it, but not as a wide receiver 1, not as a wide receiver 2. These are definitely wide receiver 3s, people that you're drafting on your to have on your bench, hoping that if they do break out and surprise you, that you have them and you can end up starting them. But I don't think Keon Coleman or Ladd McConkey make a starting lineup week 1. If you're in a 10-man league, there's no way. And Bill said, I can't believe Buffalo gave Mahomes worthy. And it's only going to be poetic justice when the Bills and the Chiefs play and Xavier Worthy has the game-winning touchdown. I mean, that would just be a cruel nightmare for Bills Mafia. They'd be like, can you wake me up from this nightmare? But yes, those are the tight ends, and those are the players that are going to make big differences on their teams. 7 rookies primed to break out with their new NFL team in 2024. As always, you guys can follow me on NFL with Kyle, and please hit the like button on this video before you head out. As always, I want to thank everyone, mostly Bill, that has stuck around and watched this podcast. Thank you guys. If you're watching this later, let me know in the comments how you're feeling about the episode. We are almost at 55 subscribers on this channel, so the channel continues to grow day by day, and we'll continue to keep throwing content out there. And I just want to thank everybody who's been along for the ride. A lot of really cool stuff coming up on this channel and on the Only Football podcast, so check that out too if you haven't. And Bill says, thanks for the show, Kyle. It is always my pleasure to do this. So thank you guys for watching, and I hope you all have a really great night, and go Giants.